Our first story takes place in a small, forgotten village in Eastern Europe, where locals speak of the Whispering Woman, a spirit said to visit those who walk alone at night. Legend has it that many years ago, a woman was falsely accused of witchcraft. The villagers, terrified of her supposed powers, condemned her to a brutal end. Her spirit, however, didn't rest. People began reporting soft whispers in the night, followed by cold breaths at the back of their necks. They say that if you're alone and you hear her voice, you should never turn around. Those who ignored the warning would see a shadowy figure in the corner of their eye, a woman with dark, hollow eyes. She would appear, just a glimpse, but then vanish into thin air, leaving her victims paralyzed with fear. One documented case tells of a young man who dared to look. He heard the whispers and felt the chilling air around him. When he turned, he was met with a gaunt figure, barely visible in the moonlight, whispering something he couldn't quite make out. The next day, he was found by a neighbor, his eyes wide open and lifeless. Since that night, no one has dared to walk the village roads alone after dark. Story 2. Our second story is a more recent phenomenon, but one that has spread worldwide: the black-eyed children. These children are said to appear at night, often at the doors of strangers, with eyes as black as coal. Encounters with black-eyed children are eerily similar. People report hearing a knock at their door late at night, only to find a small child asking to come in. There's always something slightly off. Their clothes may seem old-fashioned, their skin pale and lifeless, and their eyes entirely black. One man in Texas described his encounter in chilling detail. The child seemed persistent, almost robotic, repeating, "Please let me in." Despite the child's pleas, he felt a deep sense of dread and refused to open the door. He watched as the child just stood there, staring blankly through the window. The black-eyed children are believed to be connected to something sinister, perhaps even demonic. Some say that if you let them in, they bring an omen of doom and misfortune. Those who do encounter these children often report weeks of nightmares, shadows moving in their homes, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. Could these children be lost souls, or are they something far darker? Story 3. Our last story is one that has circulated through countless cities, a tale as unnerving as it is plausible. They call it the man under the bed, a legend rooted in the darkest corners of our imagination. The story begins with a young woman staying at a hotel alone. After a long day of travel, she's ready to fall asleep, but she has a strange feeling that something is wrong. She dismisses it, attributing her anxiety to being alone in an unfamiliar place. As she lies in bed, she hears faint scratching sounds coming from beneath her. She convinces herself it's probably nothing, maybe just a mouse or a creaky old floorboard. But the noise continues, almost rhythmic, as if someone were trying to stay quiet, but failing. Unable to shake the feeling, she decides to check under the bed. Slowly, she peers over the edge, holding her breath. But when she finally looks, she's horrified to see a pair of eyes staring back at her, wide and unblinking. She scrambles back, but by the time she calls for help, the figure under the bed has disappeared into the night. Story 4. Imagine walking home late at night, the streets nearly empty, the world silent, and then you see him. The Smiling Man is an urban legend that emerged on internet forums, and he's described as a man who walks with a strange, unnatural grin plastered across his face. The first recorded story of the Smiling Man comes from someone walking alone late at night. The storyteller describes a man dressed in a suit, almost like a caricature, with an unnaturally wide smile. He didn't just walk. He glided, his eyes locked on his target. According to this tale, When the storyteller turned a corner, the smiling man followed, moving with bizarre, almost dance-like steps. Despite the fear creeping over them, they tried to keep calm. But each time they turned to see if he was still there, he was a step closer. People who claim to have seen the smiling man describe his face as both joyful and deeply unsettling. Some believe he is a spirit, others a hallucination born from fear. But everyone who's encountered him agrees on one thing. Once you see the smiling man, you'll never forget the way he grinned at you from the darkness. Story 5. Our next story comes from Japanese folklore and is a terrifying tale that still chills many in Japan to this day. The legend of Kuchisake Onna, or the slit-mouthed woman. According to the legend, Kuchisake Onna was once a beautiful woman, but her face was brutally disfigured by her jealous husband. Now, she appears as a ghostly figure wearing a surgical mask, hiding her disfigured mouth. People say she wanders the streets at night, often approaching those walking alone. She'll ask, "Am I pretty?" If you say yes, she'll remove her mask to reveal a horribly slashed mouth, stretching ear to ear. Then, she'll ask again. No matter how you respond, the outcome is gruesome. If you say yes, she may follow you home. If you say no, she attacks immediately. Some say there's a way to escape, answering with a question or throwing candy to distract her. But the terror of meeting Kuchisake Onna lies in her unpredictability. The thought of a chilling question with no right answer has left many in fear of encountering her, even today. Story 6. Our last story is something truly modern, the legend of a cursed phone number. In Bulgaria, the phone number 0888-888-888 is said to bring death to anyone who owns it. This urban legend is rooted in real-life tragedies. Every person who has owned this number is said to have died under mysterious circumstances. The first was a high-ranking CEO who succumbed to cancer. The second owner, a mafia boss, was gunned down, and the third was killed in a shootout. After 3 successive deaths of people who owned this number, the phone company decided to suspend it entirely. Now, 0888-888-888 is no longer in service, but whispers about its curse continue. Some believe it's just coincidence, but others wonder if the number itself might be cursed. The legend has left people wondering, could a phone number really carry a curse? And could answering it be a literal call to death? For those brave enough to call, it might be the last number they ever dial. I hope you sleep well tonight.